Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for September 11th, 2023. Let me begin by saying we must never forget events of 22 years ago. A terrorist attack on the United States, which left over 3,000 people dead, but paved the way for the imposition by the secret government or the shadow government of policies of a security state which led to multiple wars in the Middle East, which also were involved in the imposition of spying, of censorship, and the people who were responsible for that then are still in positions of influence in government today. They've never been held to account, people like George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and others. And so as we look at the events of the current period, with the motion against the unipolar order, which is the order that was established by these people, let's keep in mind the importance of uncovering the truth about September 11th and making sure that it never happens again. And the best guarantee that it won't happen again is to move toward the multipolar world, which was presaged by the events in Johannesburg, South Africa 2 weeks ago of the BRICS. Now, speaking of the BRICS, we have just seen the conclusion of the G20 Summit, or now maybe it should be called G21, as it added the African Union as a member. But the attempts by the West, by the United States and its G7 NATO allies, to use the event as a provocation against Russia and China. Perhaps you saw coverage of the press conference with the incoherent President Joe Biden mumbling, unable to answer a question about increasing tensions between the US and China, and had to be pulled away by his handlers, talking about being ready to go to bed, that he's tired. Well, he and his G7 partners failed to get a statement of condemnation against Russia or against China. They found that neither Russia nor China are isolated, despite the reports in the media that they are. Further, that there's tremendous resistance from the G20 members, especially those from the Global South, to the anti-development proposals for a global Green New Deal, which is really a thinly disguised program for continuation of anti-development policies of neocolonialism that are necessary from the standpoint of the colonial powers to continue looting these countries as they had for many, many years, for centuries, in fact, when they were colonies. Now, the media tried to portray the success of the Biden administration against Russia and China, but this was ridiculed by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who referred to the Financial Times and Reuters coverage in particular, that there had been an ultimatum against alleged Russian aggression. Lavrov referred to the actual text of the declaration, and he said it's, quote, available for reading if you want to know what actually was said, and then blasted Western media reports as ridiculous. Said these were, he criticized the Western statements as politicized and rumors that can't be taken seriously. And in contrast, he praised the Indian leadership for pushing ahead the agenda of the Global South nations for peaceful cooperative development. Now, interesting, the U.S. put forward a proposal to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. It was released on September 9th. It's called the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. And the proposal itself sounds good. It's talking about 2 rail corridors, one which connects India to the Arabian Sea, the Arabian Gulf, and the second one connecting the Arabian Gulf to Europe. And the idea is that this would then connect to maritime activity, ports, and so on, and allow for the transfer of goods from the Indian subcontinent to the Middle East and Europe by extension. Now, what should be noted is that this is already going on. This is part of the policy of the Belt and Road Initiative. As you can see over my shoulder here, the Schiller Institute put out a report on how you can move the New Silk Road, or the Eurasian land bridge, into Africa, into Southwest Asia, the so-called Middle East. In fact, not only is this underway with the Belt and Road Initiative, but this goes back to proposals made by the LaRouche Organization and Lyndon LaRouche himself for over 30 years for these kinds of corridors of development as the basis of a global development perspective that would would ensure peaceful cooperation among nations. Now, the U.S. has made promises for these kind of projects before, but none have been realized because you have obstacles on funding. I mean, you can't even begin to fathom the depth of the debt crisis in the Western countries. Where will the money come from for financing this? Besides the problem of financing it, you have green obstruction, which has prevented any kind of development projects, many of which in Africa have been canceled. So what's also of note is that this proposal comes exactly 10 years after Xi Jinping initially announced what was called then the Belt and Road Initiative in September 2013. Now, since that time, there have been many projects undertaken by China in cooperation on a bilateral and multilateral basis with many, many nations, including newer proposals to extend the Belt and Road into Iraq, Iran, Syria, as well as major projects underway in Africa of rail connections, power, dams and water management, and so on. So there's already these projects underway which are being funded by the Chinese banks, but also now we have the new development bank of the BRICS, which is undertaking a massive commitment to economic development in Africa. So here you have Biden and the West making a proposal which is, first of all, redundant, and secondly, which is greeted with great skepticism by these countries which have heard this before, including who see this as a tax project, as Macron presented it, a green transaction tax, to set up a fund which would come in part by further looting of the countries that are supposedly going to be helped by the project. So with these projects underway, the point that should be made is if the White House is actually serious about it, it should drop its military provocations against China. It should end the NATO proxy war against Russia and Ukraine, and drop its commitment to a neo-imperial unipolar order, and instead join in cooperative development with the nations of the Global South, including the BRICS. Toward accomplishing this objective, the Schiller Institute held a conference on Saturday, September 9th, and I'll have a link to that conference at the bottom of the description page. It was quite extraordinary, and don't just take my word for it. Take some time to listen to the speeches, especially the keynote of Helga Zepp-LaRouche in the first panel, and the other speeches in the first panel, which exemplify this principle of ending wars by development. And this is what Lyndon LaRouche fought for his entire life. And his ideas now are circulating throughout the Global South and the so-called developing sector. The conference was basically on the theme of joining hands with the Global South. Now, most of the world has rejected what Blinken calls the rules-based order, because it are rules made by the financial and corporate cartels to benefit private interests in the North and Western countries, but not even the people of those countries, to continue a looting policy of more than 200, 300 years old. This will no longer be accepted by most of the world. Why should we in the West accept something which forces us to use tax dollars to pay for military destruction of countries that are asking and have been begging for development capabilities for years? So I urge you, watch the video, join our mobilization, share the video from the conference, and become a part of the solution. And in doing so, keep in mind what happened 22 years ago when this new stage of the security state in the United States in particular, but also in Western Europe, was initiated as a result of a terrorist activity which has still been covered up by Western media and Western intelligence agencies.